Hi guys, welcome to another tactical video. This one is about the Immolator dedicated transport for the Sisters of Battle codex, and as you can see here it is bathed in a nice holy glow. That's because it's very sunny today and I've had to raise the exposure so you can even see anything. So, without further ado, let's go into it. What is an Immolator? For those who don't know, it's essentially a Space Marine Razorback. So it's got the same stats as a Rhino in terms of armour, so we've got armour 11 at the front and sides, armour 10 at the back. It has a transport capacity of 6 instead of 10, like a Rhino, and of course it's got the same access points, so it's got those and those. It doesn't have some of the same rules that Rhino does, like repair, but it does have a weapon turret on top, and for an Immolator, that could be a twin-linked multi-melter like you see here, it could be a twin-linked heavy flamer, or it could be a twin-linked heavy bolter. It still has the Shield of Faith rule, so it's got Adamantium Will, and of course the 6-up invulnerable save, and it comes with Searchlight and Smoke Launchers, which you can see there. So yeah, that's pretty good. The cost is 60 points. Whereas a normal Rhino will set you back 40 points. So it's only 20 points more, and basically what you are sacrificing is obviously the transport capacity and the fact it doesn't have any fire points, despite that there's one model on there, but whatever. So you're sacrificing that, but you are gaining, of course, some kind of twin-linked firepower. Now the current usually done thing with Sisters of Battle is that people will take the bare minimum squads of troops, so they'll take a heavy flamer, a heavy flamer, a flamer, in a group of 5 sisters, and then just keep doing that for their troops, and each time take one of these as dedicated transport. And then you've got loads of firepower and drive it up the table. And that can work. It definitely can work. That works by overwhelming the opponent on terms of hitting them hard. And it's probably the simplest way of playing a Sisters army. Can be effective. The problem is, like, although multiple smaller units are good against a lot of the current meta, like D weapons, Wraith Knights, anything that's like shooting ridiculously colossal strength ignores cover, kind of blasts repeatedly and stuff, which there is quite a lot of these days. Anything like that, then yeah, okay. The problem is, if an opponent dedicates against a squad of 5 sisters like that, they're not going to last very long, even if they have the Immolator, because at the end of the day it dies just as easily as a Rhino. It's actually potentially, very tinily potentially, less versatile than a Rhino, and because it doesn't have that repairable, so if it gets immobilized, well, it's stuck there for good. That said, the odds of that are very slim, so you know it's not going to make much difference. Sorry, the video cut off there for some reason. Okay, so basically you could take this and you would gain a lot more firepower, of course. Now bear in mind, even though the heavy bolter would be twin-linked, it still doesn't get to reroll to wound or anything like that. So, you know, it's a single twin-linked heavy bolter. You could get, you know, for 20 points on a tank platform. Is it that much better than a Storm Bolter? I'm not convinced. I think there'd be better places to put it. However, if you wanted to get as much long-range firepower as you could in an army, that is a way of doing it. You could have Storm Bolters and Heavy Bolters in the Battle Sister squads, Retributors and Exorcists, and then every time you can take a dedicated transport, take a Heavy Bolter Immolator, and there you go, you got some long-range firepower there. For the Heavy Flamer, I think you know, it's a twin-linked Heavy Flamer, and that is nice, actually. That is very nice, because you reroll it to wound, that kind of thing. The drawback, of course, is it has to be very close, because it needs to be able to cover people in that template, so within 8 inches to even touch them. And unlike the other ones, it cannot snapshot, so if you move over 6 inches, it cannot fire that at all. So it actually hinders its movement slightly, compared to the other options. Now the reason I like the multi-melter best is because even though it is a single shot, which isn't that good, you know, you've got that tank killing power or character killing power. You can double out them out a lot of the time, so you got a few more targets there. And what is it? I particularly like the fact that because it's twin linked, you've got a much higher chance of hitting things when snapshotting. So as a result, you can move the 12 inches and then still shoot. You can shoot at flies with them, and if you've got enough of these, shooting at flies is actually quite likely that you can do a lot of damage to them. And you know, flies don't usually get hit by multi-melters, so yeah, it's nice to have there. So one of the things you can do, I like to run these with Dominions, okay, rather than troops. The reason being, it's not any more survivable than a Rhino, and even though you have this little firepower on top, I think it's more point efficient, and you know, you get more versatility from a Rhino because you've got those fire points, so you can overwatch from the vehicle when it gets charged. You can sit in there as you need be, and the Rhino just needs to get the troop where they need to be, and then you know, it can go and do what it wants. So I actually like to run immolators with my Dominions. Okay, so there's always at least one immolator in my army. The reason being is I can have the 4 melter gun Dominions inside this. It can outflank with them, so it can try and get rear armor, or at least can get close enough to attack some kind of vehicle or character or something like that. Now, if I'm going against a vehicle and there's 2 vehicles in the proximity, then because there's 2 units with melters, they can shoot different things if need be. But how I will always work this is, if there is a unit in particular that's a tank and there's another one, I need to kill that one more than the others, then I'll make sure that I always shoot the immolator first rather than the others. And the reason being is because you sometimes get that lucky hit with the multi-melter. You know, if I get that one lucky hit on the first shot and it blows up, which is a decent chance of happening because it's twin linked as well, then you know, the other unit could still shoot at something else. So I always go for that lucky window shot first before committing the 4 other melters. Okay, so you know, you get that extra power, and then at least that way the melter Dominions can at least be almost certain to kill some kind of tank that they come on. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen every time, because you know, luck is a factor in this game. Many times they have failed to do that, but at least they usually do some kind of damage. So it's really nice. And then obviously, because they're all in the same role, you can just target a particular thing, and you know, you don't have to worry about that. So yeah, the Immolator itself is pretty good. It's a tank, of course, so it can tank shock. And on that note, if people put storm bolters on these, I say personally, don't bother. I know you want to protect the weapon on top from weapon destroyed results, but it's so rare that the storm bolter is going to make any difference to that actual roll. It's not really worth doing. And also, because it's an armor 11 chassis, you're basically going to get glanced to death before that's ever a factor, or just as likely to get glanced. So I'd say just don't bother, really. If you lose the gun, tank shock it, use it as a transport, you know, use it as a secondary functions. Just means you can flat out it every turn instead, and then you've got like more movement. So, you know, nice to do. I would say if you have loud hailers, or you want loud hailers in your army, then one of the best places to put them is on the Immolator. Especially if you're with Dominions, because then of course they can definitely get that ignores cover act of faith, which is good, and usually they don't survive a second turn anyway, so it's nice to have. Make sure you get that act of faith when you can. I always take the Dozer Blade upgrade for obvious reasons, because then of course I can just plough through cover without worry. Even with this, I actually got the Immolator immobilized last night, but that's just my poor rolling, so it's pretty rare. Yeah, so it's nice to have. What is it? So yeah, that's like the only upgrade I would take. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward vehicle. Now, the last thing I was going to say is that the difference between these and a Rhino from your opponent's perspective. Okay, you have, say, a squad of Battle Sisters rolling around in a Rhino. Okay, you've got 10 of them in there. Okay, same upgrades as a squad of 5 Battle Sisters that are rolling around in here. Okay, driving around, blah blah blah, doing what you need to. Opponent's perspective, he has a chance, equal chance, of shooting at and destroying this, or shooting at and destroying a Rhino. Okay. In fact, I actually have a Rhino right here, so we can give a literal representation. Now, he's got equal chance of killing both tanks. Okay, equal chance. Now, most people will shoot at the Immolator rather than the Rhino because of that weapon on top. That weapon is a threat. It marks it out as a threat, and also, of course, in the back of your mind, you're always doing that point calculation. So, like, this is worth more points than that. Okay, and they'll dump out the troops and blah blah blah. So they'll get rid of that. Okay. The problem there, obviously, is that really they should have gone for this because this has more troops inside it, depending on it and that kind of thing. That is actually a more formidable unit because there's more in there. There's more damage potential. There's more survivability, blah, blah, blah. Kill them early. But most people will go for the Immolators. So if you wanted, you could play on that by having a mix of the two. Although personally I'd say that, you know, you want to protect your troops usually. So putting them in a target like this, or at least highlighting a target, is sometimes a bad idea. So for that reason as well, I would say that generally speaking, if you have troops, you're better off going with the Rhino and saving that for other targets that you kind of want to get shot, like the distraction units that are Dominions, that kind of thing. Same thing with Sororitas Command Squad. Excuse me. If they were in the Immolator, they become a much bigger target than if they were in the Rhino. So it's playing with the mentality of everything, really, and you know, you just got to bear that kind of thing in mind when choosing your dedicated transport, because the juicier the dedicated transport, provided it's not any harder to kill, you know, the juicier it is, then the more likely they are to actually target it. So basically, think about where you're going to put one of these. I do recommend the Immolator. It's a lot better than the Space Marine Razorback. You could do a lot worse than take Immolators, put it that way. But having said that, just think about where you are actually putting the model in your army, who you're giving it to, and what kind of role it's going to take. So yeah, that's about it. Hopefully this video is useful. Hopefully you were able to understand some of the things I was talking about, because I tend to waffle a little bit. If you like this video and you want to see more, then subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.